Jerome Sala will prepare us with his poems.
Hello. Okay? All right. Okay, so this is called Media Effects. The story behind this one is, for many years I've written both poetry and advertising copy. I always wondered about the relationship between the two types of writing. And then the other thing here is, once I was taking a class where we were translating French poems into English, and the translation teacher told us, remember when translating French, that French is a classical language with a small c. I never really knew what he meant, but somehow I got into this poem. Media effects. Advertising is poetry with a small p. Poetry is advertising with a small a. Advertising is advertising with a small a. Poetry is poetry with a small p. Movies are film with a small f. Music is film with a small m. TV is poetry with a small screen, filled with big ads and tiny shows. Poetry is TV with a non-economic ambition. TV is a poem that scoffs at prestige. Movies are pretentious TV shows pretending to be poems. Poems are movies for those who think advertising is the greatest art form. Advertising is the favorite art form of most poets. This is why so many of them want to write for the movies. Then I just will read this new poem. It's called The Cheapskates, and the idea here is, with all this talk about cost cutting and budget cutting all the time, I was thinking, what if history decided it was wasteful to keep coming up with new events and new ideas, and modern history where it's linear, one thing after another into the future, and it said, and history said to itself, let's go back to the ancient view of history, which is circular. That way I could just repeat the same people in different forms, and the same events in different forms. And that way save, cut costs, idea costs. The other thing here is the ancient view of history, though, was early history was the golden age, and everything keeps getting cheaper and more decrepit as they go around in the circle. So that's what this is. The cheapskates. When history began running low on its natural resource of newness, and its events grew tired of squandering the little novelty they possessed in the long line toward infinity, to cut costs and take advantage of recycling opportunities, time decided to start driving in a circle again. Before long, history's most famous people began leaving the highway of no return and appeared in the neighborhood of the finite once again, sauntering around the chronological block, lost beings who longed for the city dump of the past, where the no longer relevant could bask in the noble silence of the ashes, but no rest for the reusable. I saw Julius Caesar the other day, strolling down the sidewalk, past the broken down chicken coop in our decaying backyard, knife still in his back, muttering, "Ow! Somebody get this out of me, and me out of here. It hurts, it really, really hurts to be one of the undead." But he was too holy for us D-Class A types to touch. He still wore a little of that old Caesarian glow on his noble frame like a warm toga. A poor wounded historical figure, world historical figure. Around and around he'd go, transforming with each revolution into a cheaper version of himself. Napoleon, the class interloper, the redneck Hitler, followed by cut-rate populists like Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, a polyglot of Perrons, Pinochets, the Manson family, the Cheney gang, the Bin Laden crew. But with all their connections, the books they wrote and were written about them, with all their high living and all the glory and power of their momentary swagger, not one of these fading copies of the tyrannical ideal had anything of use to tell any of us plebeians, newly minted in our own bargain basement version of immortality, we who would soon begin our own circular journey through the slums of eternity. Except, as Caesar said, it hurts, it really, really hurts to be one of the undead.
And one of the most talented and unheralded of poets will now read her contributor's notes plus one other poem. I give you Stacey Harwood.
Thank you very much, David. Did you pick up the dry cleaning?
No, did it come? Did it come?
Okay, this first poem was for a volume of Women's Studies Quarterly. They did an issue on envy, and it's called House Sitting. After the luxury of space and central air wears off, the 6-burner stove, the ice-making refrigerator, the washer-dryer, the library, the plasma TV with DVDs and TiVo, curiosity overwhelms propriety. What size shoe does she wear? How many pair are lined up on the closet floor? And where does she shop? Are those real, or is her brassiere padded? Does she whiten her teeth, color her hair? Are sex toys in the bedside table, or porn? Does he need Viagra to perform? Do they still get high, or take Lexapro? Are they earning on their investment portfolio? Go ahead. What are you waiting for? Look under that bed. Open that drawer. And this is contributor's notes that Paul Muldoon chose for most of my adult life. I worked as an economic policy analyst for the government agency that regulates gas, electric, water, and telephone utilities. So I had a lot of time to daydream. And this is what the result was. Contributor's notes. Stacey Harwood lives in Paris, where she teaches at La Varenne. She is credited with reviving the artisanal bread movement when she opened a tiny boulangerie, Pain Fermier, on Rue Christine in the 6th arrondissement. Her essays and recipes have appeared in Journal of Gastronomy, Gourmet, L'Art Culinaire, and numerous magazines both here and abroad. Her book, Stalking the Wild Yeast, based on her Food Network program of the same name, is forthcoming from Working Man Press. Stacey Harwood is the founder and executive director of Warm Hands for the Homeless, a not-for-profit organization in Boston that recruits nursing home residents from 14 cities throughout the United States and Canada to knit mittens for the homeless from donated yarn mill overruns. She was awarded a MacArthur Fellowship or Genius Grant in 1992. Stacey Harwood is a third-year student at University of Michigan Law School. She appears as Brianna on the HBO series G-String Divas. Her poetry and fiction have appeared in Erotica, Yellow Silk, Switch Bitch, and Gash.com. She lives in Ann Arbor with her partner Chloe, a massage therapist. Stacey Harwood breeds and trains German Shepherds on his farm in Eden, New York, a suburb of Buffalo, where his family has farmed for 3 generations. He teaches composition at Erie Community College. His essays have appeared in Men's World, Outside, Southern Quarterly Review, creative nonfiction, the New York Times Magazine, and elsewhere. His work has twice been selected for inclusion in the annual Best of the Small Presses anthology. His memoir, Come, Sit, Stay, is due next spring. Stacey Harwood received a Golden Globe Award for her screenplay adaptation of Alberto Moravia's Conjugal Love. She is making her directorial debut this fall with a film based on the life of Italo Svevo, Ettore Schmidt, and his time in Trieste. Rabbi Shana Rachel Horowitz lives in Philadelphia, where she and her husband, Menachem, are assistant rabbis at Congregation Beth Shalom. This is her first publication. Ever since foiling a hijacking attempt during the transatlantic flight, Stacey Harwood has been a motivational speaker. Stacey Harwood was born in 1936. She teaches dance interpretation at Sarah Lawrence College. Harwood performed with Katherine Dunham's Chicago workshop before an injury ended her promising dance career. Harwood is the author of numerous works of poetry, fiction, and nonfiction, most recently Closing In on the Light, Knopf, 1998, which was the recipient of the first ever Lifetime Extraordinary Achievement Award given by the International Society of Artists, Writers, and Performers. Of contributors' notes, Harwood writes, I have long been interested in exploring the boundaries of identity and gender among certain marginalized groups. When I was no longer able to do this through dance, I turned for survival to words. Just as there is joy and sadness in knowing who you are, so too is there joy and sadness, no grief, in knowing who you are not. This poem arises out of my musings on the limits of temporal existence as provoked by cultural constraints. Thank you.